Howdy again. So I posted the previous video on Facebook, and somebody claimed that the margins that I had were a little bit unrealistic. So what they stated was that typically a company that's trying to get their goods imported in the United States only makes a very small profit margin, whereas the reseller within the United States, such as Walmart, tends to have a very large profit margin. So to account for that, I've set the seller's profit margin here to $1 and the desired profit for the reseller to $50. So if you want to check the numbers yourself, feel free to pause the footage. We did that several times last time, so I'm not going to step through it again. But under this particular arrangement, we can see that with Trump's tariff in place, the cost to consumer would be $217.78, whereas if we go back to a 10% sales tax, the cost to consumer would be $221.10. So under this very specific arrangement, it turns out that Trump's tax actually does perform better, or I should say Trump's tariff actually performs better than the sales tax. Now, keep in mind, though, that I chose this 10% sales tax because it made it easier to do the math in my head. It turns out that the highest sales tax in the entire country is actually 9.55% right now. And additionally, we were doing this analysis based on Dayton, Ohio, which has a 7.5% sales tax. So for residents of Dayton, Ohio, right now for this particular good, you'd be paying $216.08, whereas under Trump's tariff, the cost would increase to $217.78. So under Trump's tariff, the cost of the good actually does still increase for you. And to look at the summary tab now, specifically, it looks like the cost of the good would increase about 0.79% for you. So it's not a huge increase, but it is still technically an increase in the cost of goods. Now, let's get a little bit more precise about this. Like, how high exactly are Dayton's taxes? So I asked ChatGPT also to give me the median taxes. So median represents like what 50% of the population would be experiencing. And according to ChatGPT, 50% of the population is paying a 6.9% sales tax or less. And I also asked a few other questions about like average. Average for statistical standpoints is not typically very useful because you don't really know like what percentage of the population is covered by the average. So we're going to skip over that one. I also asked the 90th percentile. So 90% of the population pays 9.2% sales tax or less. And the one that we're more interested in is I asked what the 70th percentile was. And according to ChatGPT, 70% of the population pays an 8% sales tax or less. So let's go and plug that value in. So instead of the 7.5% sales tax, let's just put all the way up to 8. So again, this currently is representing 70% of the population. It would have to pay $217.08 roughly for this good. So under Trump's, well, let's just go to the summary page. So essentially what this is saying now is, again, this represents 70% of the population here. And for 70% of the population now, if we put Trump's tariff in place, they would end up paying 0.32% more for goods. So essentially, this is saying that for at least 70% of the population, Trump's tariff would actually increase the cost to the consumer. Now, for the upper 30%, who are paying like the absolute highest sales tax, for some fraction of them, the costs would actually come down. But again, for the majority of the country, Trump's tariff would actually increase the cost of goods.